right. It sucks this way because it's like I'm looking at y'all and the camera's fucking over here on the left.
That stinks.
He could do it upright.
All right,
That's fine.
whatever.
Oh, is
It's
it
fine.
Yeah,
is
that's
it-
fine. That's fine to do it upright. That works too.
Whatever you're
Yeah.
comfortable
So
with.
whatever's more
I'm good
comfortable.
with
You?
it.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
All right.
I mean, large's head's bigger, but that's,
That's just how it is in real life, too.
Hey, everybody, welcome on back. It's the Rubbin is Racing podcast. It's brought to you by NASCAR. Sunday, we got the Cookout 400. It was formerly Federated Auto Parts 400. They went to the Cookout, which is such a move because Cookout is one of the few restaurants has side dishes that are mini corn dogs.
Yeah, well, not full-size corn dogs.
Are they
Their
full-size corn
side,
dogs?
It's-
Side
their
dishes,
side
corn dogs.
dishes are just straight up
They're
entrees, by
entrees.
the way.
It's-
You can get like a chicken quesadilla and a bunch of other shit. So
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Cookout. Hopefully we can get one up here
So
in Chicago.
cheap too.
Yeah, elite shakes too. Big time.
We not to go off on Cookout,
Please.
but the Cookout near my school in Raleigh had the trays were $7 with a milkshake, and you could add a T-shirt to your combo for $2.50. It's great.
So I think it's a great NASCAR, and I'm going to get into it a little bit because there was a Forbes article, which I jump all over. NASCAR is doing pretty well from what I understand. So having Cookout come on board and be one of the sponsors of the race is awesome. And it's the Cookout 400. It's starting at 3 p.m. on USA Network. The USA Network, I think NBC and USA have been doing a great job this season, the second half of the season, and that's going to continue. And by the way, I will tell you right now, the Pocono race last week, another banger put together by NASCAR. So it's been a great season so far. We appreciate their support. Let's get to the podcast. Headlines. Biggest headline in NASCAR by far this week, and it's not even close, is that I jumped Spider in the gambling standings again. So we're going to be going back and forth. It's neck and neck. We're on the cut line, you and I. So I mean, you're Daniel Suarez. I don't know, but whatever it is, I'm back in P2 and plenty of clean air on P1. We cannot touch this fucking
50
piece of
burger.
shit. This piece of shit
Quig-
next to us. Ugh. It's cooking me. How you feel this week?
More people should be talking about what I'm doing. This is historic.
Yeah,
50
I agree.
units.
I mean, Quiggs leads the charge with a comfortable lead. He's about to lap us. That being said, I have utmost confidence in my ability to jump large again for a second time. If you've been following this show, you know that one of the best things the things I'm best at is attempting to pick outright winners and having to settle for second place. So if history and my track record remains the same, something tells me that I'll have another P2 finish here at the conclusion of this season.
All right. We'll see about that. Like I think I know my spots now. I think I'm getting more and more comfortable with it. So expect me to be a force to be reckoned with. But again, congratulations to Quig. Give him a little bit of credit, I guess, but
Shout
more
out
to
Denny.
me because I jumped back up to P2. It's dropped right after we recorded last week. SVG will be back for the Indy Road Course. That's good news. I think it's good news. So now we're going to have the Indy Road Course with a field that'll have Brody Kostecki, which we had mentioned last week, is another supercar driver from Perth, and then the Formula One guy Jensen Button and former Le Mans 24 winner Kamui Kobayashi. Yeah, I don't know. I read a couple of articles saying that Van Giesberg is now the favorite to win that road course. I think that's getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but it's Van Giesenberg. I'm sorry, I'm going to call him SVG. Yeah, SVG for the rest of his life. So I'm hoping that maybe somebody like BJ McLeod gets up near him during a pit cycle or something and just puts him into the wall, and we don't have to hear about this shit anymore.
That should
Let's get
be
this back to
BJ's
America.
job.
Yes.
That race is just take out the foreigners.
Yeah. Absolutely. Just go around.
Be like, yeah, just put NASCAR on his back.
Yeah,
This
let's
is
bring this thing back to
stock
the USA.
car only.
I alluded to it a little bit earlier. Forbes dropped an article yesterday on the financial health of NASCAR. I'm mentioning this just because since 2008, I don't know if you guys remember in 2008, but the market came in. There was a correction. And since then, NASCAR has been struggling kind of to get back to where they were before 2008. Whatever you guys think the most recent heyday of NASCAR is, and I'm sure people have different ideas, like when is that? Like when would be the
I think kind of basically the Jimmy Johnson, Gordon days were like
Yeah.
the real most recent heyday.
right, yeah. So I would agree, and I think NASCAR is trying to get there. So at the beginning of this podcast, when we first started 20 weeks ago or whatever, we were talking about commercials and certain sponsors. NASCAR sometimes keeps their results close to the vest. Somebody who, with some inside knowledge, had sent to Forbes some of what NASCAR is doing on the financial side. I read through it because that was what I did in a former life. You guys know that I was on Wall Street for 25 years, slept my way to the middle. I wasn't that big of a deal. But I'm telling you right now, the amount of sponsors that they have is growing. It seems like the revenues are growing. We don't know about capturing TV audiences. Sometimes we don't see that, but everything else, and you guys can check out this Forbes article when you want to, but take my word for it. It seems like NASCAR fiscally is looking like it's on the right track, certainly on that growth track that they want to have since 2008. And I'll mention right away, every time we go to a race, including this weekend, I was at Pocono, the stands are packed. It's not bullshit. The stands are packed. So that's good for us because we love working with NASCAR. And with that, we also love working with somebody else. And that's the next headline that I'm going to mention. Cabo Wabo Tequila. We're so excited to be working with the official tequila partner of NASCAR. It's Cabo Wabo Tequila. It's a thick-cut tequila born in Mexico with an all-American attitude. It's damn good. It's 100% Blue Weber agave tequila. You can only make tequila from that blue agave. And this is what's happening. We'll be on site at the Cabo Wabo 250 in Michigan on August 5th with the Cabo Wabo team. We're going to be doing cocktail demos to show you guys how to make the Cabo Wabo Smoke Show, which is the perfect drink to enjoy while you're watching a race. On top of all of that, Spider and I will also be Grand Marshal, which I'm very excited about, on Saturday's race. So we're working on our Start Your Engines command so we don't look like a bunch of assholes. We're going to have to go over that multiple times, Spider.
Multiple.
Yeah.
So we got to start practicing now, Large.
Yeah, I think one of those things is, even though I'm a bigger guy, I think you're more animated. So I'm just going to kind of follow your lead. I think I'm going to be behind you, maybe, you know what I'm saying? I think we'll be up on the stand, hopefully. It's a big weekend. So it's coming up. It's going to be August 5th. We're going to remind you again next week. But if you're headed to the Cabo Wabo 250 on August 5th, come visit us at the Cabo Wabo Garage in the Midway, and I will be making cocktails with Cabo Wabo. So we're happy to have them on board as well. And we're going to be Grand Marshals at the Cabo Wabo 250 in Michigan in a couple of weeks. So enjoy the bold taste of Cabo Wabo for the 250, or go to cabowabo.com and learn more. Check out some great drink recipes. You must be 21 and up, and you have to please handle responsibly. Cabo Wabo Tequila, 40% alcohol, 80 proof. Alrighty, so that's our new sponsor. We got a tequila guys in the house.
A great name,
which is fantastic.
Yes,
I love.
I think it was originally owned by the guy Sammy Hagar.
Sammy Hagar, yeah.
And then he sold his thing. Maybe he's gone to another whatever. It seems like all these celebrities make a lot of money off of going into some fine spirits, including Cabo Wabo. So we're glad to have him on board.
Cabo Wabo.
All right. So outside of that, the only headline I'll mention is Justin Haley headline. It dropped last week, obviously, after we had taped again. He's leaving Kaulig and signs with Rick Ware for the 2024 NASCAR season and beyond. To everybody, it seems like a step back. But listen to this Haley quote. This is from Haley. I get on the surface, it doesn't look like the best move, but come 3 to 5 years with the charter agreement, TV agreement, and the political uncertainty of the election being next year, there's a lot more to it than the sports side, and I have to protect myself. I'll ask you guys right away. Charter agreement, we kind of know about it, and especially, stuff that's going on with Kaulig and Rick Ware. TV agreement, 100%. It's very, very important. The political uncertainty of the election being next year. How do we feel about the move to Rick Ware from Kaulig? I bumped into the Kaulig guys, by the way, down at the track, and they said what up to everybody. And then how do we feel about that fucking quote?
The quote is insane.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, that's crazy.
I don't really get, none of it, mate. I don't know, TV agreement, I don't think, what team... is there any difference?
So, I mean, I think, if you look at a guy like Justin Haley and you look at him from a sponsorship perspective, even this week he had the leaf gutter, scheme on his car, and that's owned by Matt Kaulig. That's Matt Kaulig's company. So it's not like he has all these outside people knocking down their door to get on his car necessarily. We know that they're kind of enamored with Chandler Smith. We know that Rick Ware has a relationship with RFK, so perhaps there's something going down the road with that, with Keselowski. So I don't know. Like, those are all more nuanced talking points. I don't know if a Republican president versus a Democratic president bodes better or worse for a Rick Ware driver versus a Kaulig driver. So that's the only reason I put that in there.
Yeah.
It's fucking great.
Yeah,
Maybe
we're gonna need some. I'm going to need some follow-up from Justin Haley in terms of what he meant by that and how specifically the presidential candidates impact the racing we see on track. But to your point, Large, I think the RFK news is really what did this. First of all, this news was completely breaking. I don't think anyone saw this coming. It sounds like, based on what I heard after the fact, that Brad Kay and Justin Haley and Rick Ware had, extensive conversations about getting him a long-term deal at Rick Ware, based on the fact that RFK was going to have a great alliance and a much bigger role with helping Rick Ware Racing and helping them with their equipment. So by that metric, it kind of makes sense. When I first saw this, I thought that Justin Haley was fired, however, because if you go back to the Xfinity race between him and Chandler Smith, it looked like they weren't teammates. It looked like they were racing for themselves, and no favors were made there. So definitely interesting watching that race in real time. But I guess now we have a little bit more clarity as to why there was no kind of semblance of team or support amongst guys racing for the same organization. But you're right. My first take was it's a step back. So I have to believe that the RFK alliance with Rick Ware is going to be substantial, especially based on hearing the amount of investment and time that both RFK and Rick Ware put in on selling Justin Haley on this idea that, there was going to be a great opportunity shortly down the road. But it is a little concerning. Kaulig, has looked really good. And Justin Haley has over-delivered on pretty much everything and pretty mediocre equipment, I'll call it. So I think he's done a great job with that opportunity, and I was not prepared to see him up and change teams. But I guess that's just the midseason NASCAR drama that we're getting. So I'm here for it, and hopefully this means Rick Ware Racing can be a little bit more competitive, which I think would be a win for the sport and Justin as well. So I'm here for it.
I think we should do a live stream on Rubbin is Racing with Justin Haley for the election night.
Does it go state to state?
Yeah. Like just a watch party with Justin Haley.
That's a great idea. That leads me to my next question. Who do you guys think is in line at Kaulig to fill that seat?
I thought you were going to ask me who the fuck is going to win the election. I thought you were going to be like, how do you feel about Kamala 2024? I was like, holy shit, we're about to get real. I don't know.
No.
Is that Chandler Smith's?
Is it Chandler Smith's? Is it SVG's? We've heard a lot of talk about SVG pursuing a full-time Cup ride as soon as next year. Do you think this could potentially be the opportunity? Or do you think it's someone that requires and comes along with immense sponsorship support and financials to help Kaulig? Because as you said, Large, it's just been internal sponsorship, pretty much, a company that Brad Kaulig owns himself, sponsoring and funding Justin Haley's ride thus far. So I don't know. It will be interesting to see if we'll get a rookie, we'll get SVG, or we'll get someone that comes flush with money. So
I think it's like one of those things where your Barstool podcast brought to you by Stella Blue. And you're like, oh no, like this brought to you by Brick Watches. Then you're like, you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things. I don't know who the name is, but like you said, Haley's been doing pretty well, and then Allmendinger still tries, finds ways to be competitive, particularly on road courses.
Yeah.
So yeah, the only thing I can say is he's 24. Justin Haley's 24, so he's got time. And Kaulig even said in their statement, this might not be the end of Justin Haley with Kaulig Racing, because we expect him to have a long career, and we know how people bounce around a little bit. So I don't know. It's a very interesting story. Like I said,
it comes down to.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I bumped into the Kaulig guy at the track, and I was like, "How you guys looking today?" He was like, "Well, he's like, AJ seems like he's pretty motivated to be racing for us." And I don't think that means that Justin is putting it on autopilot or anything, but I think they're also maybe a touch confused by it as well. So who knows? I'm sure more comes out.
it's a lot like the Tyler Reddick thing. I think these drivers, especially when you get to the cup level, none of them want to take a step back and go down to Xfinity for a year or until they get further opportunity. Justin Haley was promised a multi-year agreement at Rick Ware Racing. So to me, I think that's kind of why he jumped ship. And the same can be said about Tyler Reddick last year. He wanted a long-term deal at RCR. They kind of were hesitant, and he got that long-term deal elsewhere with 2311. So I think it really comes down to job security.
If Bernie Sanders wins, Kyle Busch to the 31. That's what I'm hearing right now. That's
Large had it first.
Yeah. We're going to recap Pocono, and we'll do some over-under. I'm going to tell you right now, it's an hour and a half drive for me. I live in northern New Jersey, an hour and a half drive out to Long Pond, Pennsylvania. It's a very good track to go to. It's 2.5 miles, as everyone knows. It's the Tricky Triangle, so it's not a traditional super speedway, even with that kind of length. But the reason I mentioned the length, there is a huge infield. There is a huge infield party scene. I parked on the infield this time, so I was in there with it. And it's sort of like a northern version of Talladega. Very watered down Talladega. Please don't come at me. We'll call it Yankee Dega or whatever you want to call it. But I'm telling you right now, if you're in the Northeast particularly, and if you can't get down to one of these bucket list places, and Talladega springs to mind right away, I highly recommend you guys getting out to Pocono Raceway. It's a fun fucking track, first of all. A lot of stuff happens on it. This weekend was a perfect example. And the track itself is a fun place to watch a race. That's all I'm going to say.
And it seems like it's getting better every year. I saw a picture 10 years ago of the infield versus this year, and it was night and day. And I don't know, I've enjoyed Pocono races more and more every year.
Have you ever gone?
No,
okay.
Never gone.
Spider, no, right?
No, I haven't, but I mean, that's one that I wish I got to when I was in the greater New York City area, especially given that it's only an hour and a half. And it's a very unique track. I mean, I know obviously the Tricky Triangle, but the fact that it is a triangle and there's no turn 4 is very cool to me. And it has a lot of the similar vibes that you mentioned you'd get at a big track with the immense infield camping. You'd see it like Talladega and the Daytona. So definitely a bucket list for me at Pocono.
No smoked turkey legs. I looked. None. So boo.
Damn.
But otherwise, I wasn't even in one of those suites that my fat ass loves. There's bleachers closer to the track. Then it goes into contoured seating. That's where I was, in the 200s. And then there's, seating behind me, which would have been the VIPs. I wasn't up in that. So I don't want to say that it was one of those white glove treatment things that we're used to at all the NASCAR tracks. But first of all, it was a beautiful day. We were walking around and everyone's like, no rain, no rain, no rain. Because it's been a month. It's been a month since NASCAR has gotten off a race cleanly, starting in Nashville, where they had to postpone that race on us and then continuing through New Hampshire, Chicago, all that kind of stuff. So it's been a month. So I think everyone was just thrilled to be out there on a beautiful day. And I think Pocono did a very good job. I bumped into our guy, Derek Yoder. He was there with his family. Yeah, he's the man. I went over to Jeff Gordon, and right before I went, Jeff Gordon said hello to me. So I was going over to talk to him, and right as I was about to get to him, Bob Pockrass blocked me and started to talk to Jeff with the little microphone, like his little private rig, and they spoke for about 10 minutes while I'm standing there like a moron, waiting. I was going to have my kids take a picture with Jeff Gordon, and then after they were done, Jeff came over to me and I was like, hey, Jeff, give me a second. Can you take a picture of me and Bob Pockrass? Because I'd never met Bob before.
Jeff took that photo?
Yeah.
No, you can't make Jeff do that.
And then my kids took a picture of Jeff Gordon.
Large keeping Jeff Gordon humble. I love it.
So I got to meet him. I said, listen, there's a guy close on your heels. He was like Spidey Scoops. No, he didn't say that at all. But I was like, this guy, Spidey Scoops. I was like, we cover the sport for Barstool, new podcast. Love to have you on. He's like, I'd love to come on. So perhaps we have Bob Pockrass in the pipeline, which was kind of cool. So Friday was Kyle Busch won the trucks. So 100th victory for his team. And the 64th.
Speaking of Bob Pockrass, let me just interrupt
please.
quick. Bob Pockrass each week puts out tweets of who he thinks is going to win each race. He nailed it this week on Saturday, as did I. He had Kyle Busch winning the trucks, and then he had Austin Hill at 15-1 to win the Xfinity race. and he went 2 for 2 on Saturday. So we might need to tap into Bob Pockrass's brain. We're going to definitely try to have him on the show, but hopefully he's down to give some picks as well, because he seems very sharp.
He walks around with the same gravitas that Jeff Gordon does. Like, he walks around that track. His shit does not stink. Everyone knows him. He gets all the access he wants. Like, not that we don't get great access. We 100% do. But you can tell he's the man. You got some wood to chop. You got to break a couple of big ones, Spider. Big ones.
I'm punching up.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kyle had won. Congratulations to KFB and his racing team. That's their 100th win. I think 64 of them are Kyle. He's won 2 out of the 5 truck races that he was in this season. But when we got into Sunday at the race that I was at, it was meltdowns a go-go. I mean, obviously everyone is talking about the Denny versus Kyle Larson hullabaloo, and we're going to get to that. And we decided to bring Denny on this week. So we're gonna go right to the source when we talk about that. We'll get to it a little bit here, but otherwise we'll save it for Denny. But I got to be honest with you, Joey Logano wins stage 1 and then hits the wall, blows all 4 tires, and then has an absolute meltdown on the tow crew. I loved that. I love that soundbite, and I don't think Joey is that proud of it to have been caught on an open mic necessarily.
Yeah,
we've all been there. Yeah, but I think for people who didn't see it, so Joey, again, he's won stage 1, doing very well in the race. He hits the wall, blows all 4 tires, and he blows them maybe, a half mile, from the start-finish line. So he's got to go all the way around 2 miles to get back to pit row, so he needs a tow truck. But otherwise, his car is fine. So he's like, I just need fucking tires. You so stupid sons of bitches. Like, he was going at him. And when they finally put him on the truck, they drag him slowly for 2 miles with him bouncing around. And I see his point.
Yeah.
Like, that should get better.
And I think I wouldn't be surprised if in the next few years that becomes a thing where if you're in that situation, they bring a jackman and a guy that can just put 4 tires on it.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't end somebody's day. It's a lot better and an easier solution. It's probably quicker than trying to get him on the jack and do that properly. And
because they have to go 2 miles around so slowly.
Yeah.
And the amount of damage that's caused to the bottom of the car, towing him on 4 flats, basically pushed him out of the race. I mean, It did. I don't know how much damage was done, like I said, when he hit the wall. And he had turned around and hit the wall, so it would be on the left side. I don't know how much damage, but he seemed like he was convinced he could have gone if they just brought out 4 tires and a jack.
1,000%.
Yeah.
I loved it. I saw a lot of myself and Joey Logano there. Like, people on Twitter were like, oh, there's that Northeast coming out of Joey.
Yeah.
He's fired up. But honestly, I think everything he said is pretty spot on. I think also, like you guys said, I don't think he is proud of the fact that got amplified. But to me, this was one of the best moments of the race, if not the best race audio we've heard in a long, long time. I think all the NASCAR fans pretty much across the board agreed and enjoyed this meltdown, whereas the beefs that we're going to get into here in a minute, it seemed were much more dividing between people, and people were forced to choose sides rather.
You know what? It's one of those things too, and perhaps people with more historical perspective can correct me. But NASCAR, whether it's Fox or NBC, they have cameras and microphones everywhere.
Yeah.
You cannot do a fucking thing anymore on the track without it being picked up on some mic or being caught on a camera.
Yeah.
And this weekend was a perfect example because everybody got caught doing bad shit at some point during it. And the second one is Austin Dillon. So Austin Dillon throwing his helmet at Tyler Reddick, at our guy Tyler Reddick, and by the way, absolutely missing him. I mean, he should have led his receiver a little bit. Right?
And I don't think he was in the right there.
No, I think most people agree he wasn't.
Austin Dillon's fault.
Yeah. I spoke to Paul Swan afterwards, who works with Austin Dillon's crew.
What did he have to say?
He was like, Austin, I've never seen him so angry. And these guys haven't seen all the replays, so I don't know if hindsight is 2020. I haven't, heard anything from Austin Dillon afterwards. Tyler Reddick said that it wasn't something that he had done on purpose or anything that there was any kind of malice involved. So the majority of the people who had watched it seemed to have been on Tyler Reddick's side. There was a couple of polls online and whatnot. But either way, it had Austin Dillon on tilt, and they got a great and Austin Dillon's an athletic dude.
I'm taking Austin Dillon's side.
Oh, you're on his side. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, listen, this, as far as I'm concerned, this is a racing incident. I can't knock Austin for getting, super upset. I think in the grand scheme of the incidents we saw in this race, if I'm going to have an issue with anyone, it's going to be Alex Bowman crying about Denny Hamlin on his bumper when he really even wasn't on his bumper. No contact was made. He pretty much wrecked himself. And sure, you can maybe point to aero or dirty air or whatever. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I think that's much more of a hissy fit than Austin Dillon. And I appreciate Austin bringing some drama. We got helmets thrown. Granted, as I said on Twitter, I would have preferred if they threw fists, but it was still hella dramatic, especially because of the fact that these were teammates that we saw together racing on the track last year. So to see them, I don't know, kind of at odds here, that was super dramatic and exciting and electric. And I mean, if Austin were to just roll over and be like, shit happens, I don't think that would have made for as good a drama. So thank you, Austin. And keep throwing helmets. Your second throw is going to nail him right on the windshield. So
I think
I'm here for it.
Kyle Petty had the biggest meltdown of the week. He was like,
what do you say?
He was just, I don't know. He was just very upset about the Denny Hamlin situation. And it felt like personal, and he borderline called Denny like a sociopath. And it was like, I don't know. You guys will talk to Denny more clearly, but I think that was the most overblown. It was overtime racing. If he made contact with him, he barely did. Larson could have not hit the wall there, no matter what. Larson's an amazing driver, and if he could have, he probably would have stayed out of the wall. But I think that was any driver would do that, and Denny got massacred for it.
I mean, Kyle Busch pretty much did the same thing in the truck race. Granted, not as egregiously or a little bit more professional, I'll call it. But Corey Heim at the end of the race, who finished second, was initially in the post-race interview upset. But then he came to terms and was like, you know what? That's racing. I think a lot of guys would do that, especially with what was on the line for Kyle Busch there with the 100th win. And I kind of see the same thing for Denny getting his 50th win. Everyone does it. And Kyle Larson is a guy that's made it his bread and butter off running the high line, running super close to the wall, the outer lane. So, I mean, if anyone can do it, it's Kyle Larson. As you said, Quiggs, he's one of the best drivers in the circuit. I don't think it's beyond, I don't think it's crazy to have that expectation for Kyle Larson.
Denny hooked him or something, or no, he put him in a bad situation where he had to make some decisions about lifting or really trying to get close to that wall.
I'm going to jump in now because we are going to have him on in just a couple of seconds. So I will do that. So we now so far have Joey with a meltdown. We have Austin Dillon throwing a helmet at Tyler Reddick. You obviously have smoke between two good friends, Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson. You had Bowman with some smoke for Denny. You had Ryan Preece jumping out of his car afterwards and trying to get into a car with Corey LaJoie, who, by the way, I had met by the haulers. I congratulated him on his new contract, and he's like, we haven't signed the contract yet. I was like, oh, shit. Yeah, I forgot about that. So you had him. Then you had Ty Dillon basically, hooking our boy Chase Briscoe. There was a lot of stuff going on in Pocono. All of them, I think, add up to probably one of the best NASCAR / Rough and Rowdies ever. Oh, yeah. If we can get all those guys in there. I'd pay big money for Ryan Preece versus Corey LaJoie. I'd pay big money for awesome. Austin Dillon versus Tyler Reddick for no reason at all. And then obviously the biggest one, which I really don't understand, but it's probably the biggest story of them all, would be Denny versus. Actually, I'd love to see Logano fight a tow truck guy. But Denny versus Larson was obviously the biggest storyline. So because of that, we're going to go 3 wide with our guy, Denny Hamlin. You guys know that Denny is amongst our family of Coca-Cola. They're in the Coca-Cola racing family with us. And it's just a reminder, Coke and NASCAR is always a great pairing. So I'm going to open up one right now. Is an ice cold Coca-Cola at a 100-degree track the best Coke ever? There's only one way to find out, and that's to try it for yourself. And a reminder that we are going to be at the Coke Zero 400 in Daytona in a couple of weeks, and we can't wait. So with that, we're going to go 3 wide with one of the Coca-Cola family of drivers, Denny Hamlin.
All right. It sucks this way because it's like I'm looking at y'all and the camera's fucking over here on the left.
That stinks.
He could do it upright.
All right.
That's fine.
Whatever.
Oh, is
It's
it
fine.
Yeah,
is
that's
it-
fine. That's fine to do it upright. That works too.
Whatever you're
Yeah.
comfortable
So
with.
whatever's
Denny.
more
I'm good
comfortable
with
to you?
it.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
All right.
I mean, Large's head's bigger, but that's,
That's just how it is in real life too.
Yeah. I'm going to take that piece of tape off next time I masturbate, just so you guys know. All right, so you guys ready to go in? That's some fucking intro.
Ready to roll.
Cool. So like I said, we got Denny Hamlin. For people who don't know Denny Hamlin, he drives the 11 car for Joe Gibbs Racing, and Pocono Raceway is his bitch. Denny now owns Pocono. 7 wins there, breaks the tie with some guy named Jeff Gordon. Was also the site of his first career win back in 2006, on top of getting his 50th career win. Huge milestone. It's also his 12th multiple win season as of this weekend. Congratulations, Denny Hamlin. Welcome back onto Rubbin is Racing. Before we get into the hullabaloo with you and one of your friends, I just want to ask you the question. What makes Pocono Raceway so goddamn easy for you? What is it about that place that, and I hate to use the same term twice, that you make it your bitch just about every time you get onto it? What is it about it?
I mean, I think it's because it's kind of an indication. It's such a cliche thing, and I know it sounds bad, but it's an indication of where your team is at. Like, you got to have a fast car, you got to have a good engine, your arrow's got to be good, your strategy's got to be good, and the driver's got to do his part. So I only have one element of that I have to do. The rest is up to the team. So I just think I've been really lucky to be with a fast team for most of my career.
Denny, that track you won, obviously, and people seem to boo you, which I know you're nothing. That's nothing new to you, and you have faced a lot of that in your career. Which track would you say has been least receptive to you following a win? Is it Pocono?
You say least
Yeah.
receptive?
Yeah. Like, which one have you gotten booed at the most, or which one are fans the worst to you at?
Oh man, I mean, probably Martinsville. I mean, simply because the fans are closest to the racetrack there, tight environment. I would say Martinsville, and that really kind of stemmed from the Chase Elliott 2017 thing.
I will tell you, and I think I mentioned this last time we spoke, I was at the race this weekend. I was at Pocono with my family, so I got to watch everything firsthand. But even if I wasn't, I would know right away that Denny Hamlin won a race because I immediately get a DM from Red Rocks Ron just holding up the Denny Hamlin hat. I think that's every time you win a race. That's how I get alerted by it. But I just want to comment on a couple of things that you had said on social media afterwards, because Spider had said, what's the least popular place for you and all that stuff. You're starting to embrace the villain thing, I think, more this season than you have before. And it's been pretty funny. Like, when you go through pan through the crowd and you said, look at all the 11s in the crowd. And then whoever does social for you, like, cued in on some big fat guy who looked kind of like me, throwing him up right next to some woman who looked kind of like me, throwing him up in the whole deal. And then even you saying, hey, they can boo me all they want. They can boo me when they paint my name on the rock outside. You know, you've been throwing it out there, kind of giving it back as much as you're getting. Are you starting to embrace this villain thing even more so than you did when you were, like, earlier in your career and you got a little bit of booze?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was time to reel that back in, but I just think that there's no going back at this point. I think that I've adapted my style to match those who have I've deemed aggressive in the past. And honestly, I've gotten the bad end of it enough throughout my career that I've said, you know what, I've just got to change my style. And if it means that I have to be more aggressive on the racetrack to get more wins, that's what I have to do, because that's what everyone has been willing to do over the last 5 years or so. The aggression level's just gotten up. And at that point, you know, when you're not a super popular driver, or you get into it with a popular driver, it's, you know, fans, I understand they don't see or think clearly. They don't judge it through the lens of, well, what happened? Is that okay or not? It's just, was my driver wronged or not? The result of this weekend is there was a winner, there was a loser. And if you were on the losing end, you have to assign responsibility to someone. And for them, it was to point the finger and assign the responsibility to me. And that's okay.
When we first started this pod, sorry, Larch. When we first started the pod and it was Dave and Clint Boyer hosting, you and Kyle Larson called in from the golf course. I know you guys are good friends off the track and, you guys are consistently golfing together. What is the relationship now? Have you had any contact with Kyle? Did you reach out to him? Do you plan on reaching out to him? Do you feel like that's a necessary thing, or are you of the opinion that it was a racing incident and anyone who's not a fan, like you said, was probably aware of the circumstances?
I mean, I do think it's a racing incident. I mean, what's the name of your podcast? Rubbin's Racing, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
damn right.
It's what our sport was built on. Now, I'm digging my feet in. I said I didn't think that there was any contact because I looked at the evidence in which I knew. I was driving the car. I didn't feel a thing. I looked on the right side of my car in Victory Lane. You can look at the right side. There's not a scratch on it, not a dent, not a scratch, not anything. So if there was contact, I was unaware of it. I asked the team, was there any? No, I don't think so. I mean, of course, they might be biased towards me, but fuck, I mean, that's what they're supposed to do. So right. If you're upset that we touched in a end of the race scenario, racing for the win, that's your problem. That's not my problem. If fans have a problem with it, then they should look back in the last 2 years when the roles were reversed and saw that maybe their driver did the same thing. And were they up in arms in that moment, or were they justifying it? You got to look at it objectively, but sometimes fans don't, which I understand.
I almost wish that it didn't happen, even though it's always fun to talk to you and it's always fun to have more headlines to talk about, because in this race in particular, there were so many other interesting things going on. Like we're very close with Chase Briscoe. He's one of my favorite guys in the world. I love Chase. Spider feels the same way. Nobody's talking about Ty Dillon ruining Chase Briscoe's day. I know Bowman had made some comments about you, sort of got swept underneath the rug, as they should have, because they were nonsensical. But Joey being caught on that hot mic waiting to get towed was an awesome fucking story for us to talk about. I mean, now you know Joey as well as anybody, right?
Yeah.
And you know how, and I'm sure you've been caught on hot mics before. You know how bad that can be. That Joey must feel awful about it, I think. I'm going to ask you about the other storylines. I'm going to start with that one. How do you feel Joey's feeling once that thing had gotten out?
Listen, I'm in the same business y'all are in, right?
Yes.
As a podcast host, I'm like, this is gold. I couldn't believe it. Like, we knew as competitors he had this in him, but he never would let it show to the public, right? Like we knew that Joey was in there. And finally he got caught on the hot mic and lost his mind. And I get it. I would have probably lost my mind too. I don't know if I would have lost it that much. It'd been close. But man, holy cow, it was on another level. And certainly there was enough storylines to go around from that race weekend that it's not all about what happened at the very end of the race. Like,
it's not that
Priest going after LaJoy.
It's not that interesting what had happened between you and Kyle. Like, honestly, but when you think about it, we had you on, I think we'd asked you to rate Ross Chastain's punch versus Noah Gragson's chin at one point earlier in the season. And now I'm going to ask you to rate Austin Dillon's arm. Like that would have been a huge storyline without it. How do you feel he did, tossing a $5,000 helmet onto the track?
Listen, Pop's not going to be happy about getting the helmet, having to replace the helmet. Yeah. But I'm going to give Austin the benefit of the doubt. The throw, the velocity was strong.
Yes.
The aim was bad because he bounced it in. It's like bouncing in a first pitch of the game. You can't do it, right? Mm-hmm. If you're going to throw from the mound, you got to get it to the plate. But he's not dealing with a ball. he was holding the thing by the damn chin strap, and when you let go, it's not going to release cleanly. So I I'm gonna give Austin a pass on this because he probably hasn't thrown a whole lot of helmets in his day, and I thought the velocity was enough to impress me.
Fair enough.
Obviously, as Large mentioned, a lot of drama at this race. I know obviously the people that he mentioned getting into it, and I'm with you, Denny. Large and I both kind of feel like what you said. It was a racing move. We didn't think anything too, malicious of what happened there at the last lap. But that still being said, how do you feel about your competitors? Do you think they're going to feel the same way? Are you expecting any retaliation at any point? And I guess who would you expect it to be from?
I don't expect competitors to like it because I've been on the other end of it and I've hated it. And people talk all the time about, well, you're a hypocrite because you yell at Ross Chastain for wrecking you and yell at Chase Elliott for wrecking you, but yet when you do it, it's fine. Wait a minute. I was on the shit end of those deals. Of course I have a certain kind of feeling about it. When you're on the winning end of it, you feel a little differently. Now, it's very different when, if someone hooks you in the right rear or flat out just wipes you out from behind in a rubbing or a air situation at the end of a race for the win. Like, it is different. You will not convince me otherwise of that. But of course, there's going to be different feelings, depending on what side you're on. Everyone feels that way. So you're always going to see a different reaction when people have it done to them versus when they do it. But I've been used up enough by this type of driving that I've realized I must adapt or die, because 3 times over the last 3 years, I've been in the lead and got wiped out. And I've just said, well, this is clearly the way that racing is going nowadays, and I must adapt my style to be more aggressive. If you listen to my podcast the week before, oddly enough, I says, man, I want 50 bad. And I think I'm going to have to get more aggressive to do it. And when you got my crew chief going right before the green flag saying, it's the most wins in the track, it's your 50th, it's Toyota 600. Find a way. What the mistake was is when Kyle went up the racetrack, he opened my eyes to say, oh shit, I found a way.
And then can you explain to people, because what people have gotten granular about is Kevin Harvick's dash cam, right? So when you see it from that angle, I'm going to use other people's words too, it's clear that you make contact. But you're saying that that's not the case, right? It's one of those arrow where there's some sort of cushion in between you that essentially causes the person that you're kind of pushing up against to then go dead right, which is exactly what had happened with Kyle Larson. So can it be sort of almost an optical illusion? I'm not trying to put words in your mouth and make excuses and stuff like that, but from that angle, and again, we talk about Joey Logano. You can't do anything on a NASCAR track anymore without it being caught on tape or being caught on microphone. Right. And then you always have those, all the steering information and all that kind of stuff so people can prove whether or not stuff had happened. And obviously I had seen your car going into victory lane and there was nothing on the right side. You're 100%. So you're 100% correct. So is there some sort of optical illusion where everyone is just so convinced that you bumped them?
They're grasping at a reason why they're upset, and they need a reason to justify being upset. And that the reason Kyle lost is because I knocked him up the racetrack. I didn't knock him up the racetrack. If we touched, it literally was a touch. I can't say we did or didn't. All I look at is the evidence, and that is my car didn't have a scratch on it. I tried to explain in my podcast too, is that when Kyle went up the racetrack, when you want to look at onboards, look at my onboard. Look at what I see, because that's a pretty good camera, my dash cam of my perspective. You see Kyle go up the racetrack, and at that moment, I'm thinking, I got to get clear, and I got to get clear now while he has lost his momentum. So I gas it up as hard as I can through the center of the corner and come up the racetrack to try to clear. I'm assuming he's still getting his shit together up at the top of the racetrack. Well, when they're saying he's still there, at that point, I start checking up. As you saw, we both lost momentum. I didn't hit anything major. So why was my momentum lost? It's because I started slowing down and acknowledging that I had a car on the outside of me. So at that point, I realized I could not clear myself. It was my responsibility to pull down the racetrack and try to leave him a room. But at that point, the damage had already been done in the sense of he had run out of space. And but I couldn't see that. All I see is straight in forward me. He's behind me at the time. He's not even with me. So I assume that all I got to do is gas it up here and clear him, and it's blouses. It's over. So when it didn't happen, I have to make a split-second decision to try to keep my car in that lane, which I tried to do by lifting, but it was just too late.
So let's turn the page here. I'm sorry to make you keep beating a dead horse, Denny. I want to talk about something positive and your recent success. I mean, 50th career win. I mean, is there one of these that sticks out and means the most to you? I know, obviously this last one was a milestone win for the fact that it was 50 and you had your crew there to celebrate with you. And it looks like you and Ronnie Hatz and the rest of the team had a great time celebrating. But, if there's one you're most proud of, I know that's a super tough question. What would you say it is?
I think there was a win in 2010 at Martinsville where we dominated the race and it came down to 10 laps to go. Myself and someone else pitted, and we went back to ninth position with 9 to go, and we found a way to win. And that was the most proud moment because I thought we had given the race away, and then we found a way to make it happen. And so there were a lot of circumstances. I think there was a couple cautions that where I passed a few cars and a caution came again. And so that one was like a hell yeah type of win for me. The 2016 Daytona 500, winning it in the closest finish ever in that race was, the fashion of going back to 4th or 5th on the final lap and then propelling all the way to the lead right before the finish line. That one was probably tops of the list as well. But those two stick out in my mind.
And you got 7 or 8 Pocono Eagle trophies now at this point, I'm sure. And it looks like, as we can see behind you, your trophy case is getting pretty full. If you need to get rid of one of those, I'll send you a shipping address and we'll put it on Quig's desk.
I got a Martinsville grandfather clock I'll give you.
Oh, perfect. That was in my trophy.
I'll obviously take that, Spider. Right?
Give the grandfather clock to the grandfather.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go.
No big deal. Whatever. You can get Miles the Monster, you fucking freak. Listen, speaking of old men, how old are you, Denny? You 39?
Yeah, something like that.
Exactly. Last year of your contract, Joe Gibbs says he'd sign you for another 10 years, tongue-in-cheek, and that it's going to get done. Are you at a point where you're like, I'm so sick of this shit? I mean, I'm a team owner. I should have mentioned it from the beginning. You're the host of Actions Detrimental, which drops very early in the week, almost immediately after the race on Monday or Tuesday, and it gives everyone a perspective from, a competitive driver, right? So it's like not a singular type thing. Corey LaJoy does a great job with stacking pennies, but obviously you bring a little bit more controversy and a little bit more attitude towards this thing with Actions Detrimental. What are you looking at? I mean, what's the long term? No one's as old as Harvick, right? So Harvick's walking away. I think he's 47 years old. But what is it? Can we break something here on how long Denny Hamlin will continue to torture other drivers by running them into the wall in Pocono?
As long as I feel I can win every week. I'm just too competitive to race when I'm on the decline. I think that Father Time is undefeated, and I know that the fall off the cliff when it comes to your senses and your reaction time, all that, it happens really quickly. I'm not going to be naive to that. But when that day happens, I'm going to call it quits for sure, because I don't need the money. I've made my money. I've got really good investments, and I feel like I'm here because I want to win, and I feel like I can win 36 times per year. And when that changes, then I'm going to change my outlook and shift my focus to other things.
Do you foresee a future in which you race for the team you own in 23XI, or do you think Joe Gibbs is a spot for you long term?
I think both. I think if it was up to Gibbs and myself, I'd love to stay there and retire there. That's the number one thing, but there's not a scenario that I ever put out of the window. I don't think there's any secret that we would love to make 2311, a championship contending team and grow it over time. I don't know when that time is, but I wouldn't put anything out of the picture. But as long as Joe keeps taking care of me the way he does, I don't foresee any changes.
And while we're on the 2311 camp, are you guys considering, or have you had any discussions or potentially adding another charter to the 2311 camp and maybe getting a third car?
Well, that's why we're building a new headquarters, is because we're kind of landlocked where we're at right now. And we can't afford, we can't put anything else in our building. We got people stacked on top of each other in the front office now. So that's why we're building a new headquarters in Huntersville that should be done late this year, early next year. And that's going to open up the possibilities for us to expand our personnel and teams and stuff in the future. So it's on the horizon, but we don't know when exactly the right time is for us.
Don't just glance over that new headquarters that you build in. So this thing's going to be a rocket ship, I'm assuming, right?
It's a rocket ship. I would be hard pressed to find any Formula One shop that would be nicer than what we're building there in Huntersville.
I would.
Wow.
By the way, I don't want to, inject us into it, but I think from Barstool's perspective, you can get a lot of good coverage to have us down there for the grand opening, particularly if there's a buffet involved. Just put that little bug in your ear right now.
I mean, listen, there is a restaurant / cafe in there, so we can accommodate your needs.
Thank
I don't know how many quarter pounders with cheese we need to have for you from McDonald's, but we'll get what we need.
Yeah, I think that's that's an old joke and a fat joke I got from Denny Hamlin so far. Spider, we've only been doing this for about 10 minutes. Go ahead, Spider.
Well, I got one too, Large. I was going to say, I don't think it'd be in Denny's best business interest to have an all-you-can-eat buffet and then follow it up by inviting you there. But Denny, I want to ask about your SRX win. You won in your debut at my home track at Stafford Speedway. What was that experience like? And do you think you're a one and done? Are you just going to ride off into the sunset in the SRX series with a win in your belt, feather in your cap, or can we expect to see you racing there again?
I mean, would I take an invite to do it again? Probably. Right? It's really hard to tell me no, or it's hard for me to tell people no in that instance. But I like doing the one and done, and especially with a victory. I'd never been to Stafford before, but that was an awesome racetrack. The crowd was fantastic. I picked that racetrack for a reason, because I had never been there and I liked the layout of the track. And so it's really fun, honestly, to know that you've got the same exact car as everybody else. Like, they won't let you do any adjustments to your car that they don't do to all the cars. Like, we're over there politicking to, like, hey, can we take some air pressure out here or do this? And like, no, you can't touch it. Like, so it's cool to know that you've got all the same stuff and you're able to go out there and compete, especially I think the competition's better this year, having Harvick there and Brad's there full time. And you got more, Clint Boyer was there when I was there. He actually impressed me kind of the most of the guys that are retired. So it's fun. Would I do it again? Probably. Will I? Probably not.
I don't want to backtrack, but we made fun of Joey a little bit, but on that situation that he was in, I'm sure you've been there too. Do you agree with him that NASCAR should do something where they can get 4 fresh tires out to you as opposed to slowly tow you around 2 miles of track and ruin the undercarriage of your car?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a worst case scenario for him in a lot of different ways. He was at the corner furthest from pit road.
Yes.
The track is long as shit, right? And and then it took him a minute to communicate evidently to the guy what he was looking for. So I think that I agree with him in the sense that, like, we should try to come up with a better scenario, but I don't know what it is. I think if we all knew what it was, we would do it already. But I think what he's saying is bring a tow truck out there that's got 4 tires on it that they can just switch out really quick. But I mean, how do you jack up a car that's on a banked racetrack? Like, you know what I mean? So there's always catches to what you think is a great idea, which is why we haven't done anything different. I mean, then the next question is, well, then why don't you just lift it up in the air like the F1 cars do? Well, they don't weigh a quarter what our cars weigh. So to have some sort of motor vehicle there that can pick up a cup car and have all 4 tires off the ground, that's unrealistic as well. So I wish we could come up with a scenario that's better. I just don't know what it is.
Jumping back to your team, Joe Gibbs Racing, two rapid fire ones for you. To your teammate Ty Gibbs, having a great stellar rookie year, currently hovering right around the points line for the cut in playoffs. Do you think he gets in?
Say yes.
I would say no. I just think, that's my honest answer. Am I rooting for him? Yes. I mean, do I want him to beat the 23? No. But I just think with some of the road courses coming up, he hasn't been super fast on the road courses. Daytona, you just never know what can happen there. But he's putting himself in a better position every single week. Like he's getting better. And that's all you ask out of a rookie. And it's a tough ask to ask him to replace Kyle Busch. And that's why they changed the number and change all that stuff, is you don't want those comparisons because it's not deserving, right? It takes a long time to get the craft that a Kyle Busch has got in racing, but he's doing it well. And he's for a rookie, I think out kicking his coverage. And if he makes it in his first year, man, that's a huge accomplishment.
Absolutely agree. And I know Martin Truex is getting tired of hearing the same question over and over again on his retirement status. From your perspective, do you think we'll see Martin Truex on the track next year?
I do. I think the delay in the answer has to do with some leveraging for other things. But I'll leave it at that. I think that both sides are happy with Martin and Joe and their agreements and everything. But I think there's some other factors that Martin would like to see that, they're trying to get in the works.
Awesome. What are we looking at this weekend, Denny? Spider and I are heading down to Richmond on Saturday. We're doing a drive along with Junior, with Dale Jr. So we're going to be down at the track, probably bump into you, no big deal. Can you give us a preview of what we should be looking out for at Richmond?
I mean, Richmond it's such a slick track. I mean, I can't emphasize like how much less grip it has than what a Pocono has. But we try to run that yellow line like right around the bottom there. For whatever reason, that paint has got so much extra grip in it that you'll see the fastest cars running right around the bottom. If someone's car is off the bottom, they're struggling or they've missed the corner. So it's one of those racetracks that you truly as a driver make a difference because you're the one that has to manage your tires. And if you overdrive your car, you pay a price for it. That's why I like that track.
Perfect. So before we let you go, Denny, I just want to get something for the thumbnail. Would you mind throwing up the 11s for everybody, just so we all know? So that's the 11s. Denny Hamlin, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate it, Denny.
Good.
You're the man. Say hello to Mary Lou. Respectfully.
I will.
Yes, absolutely. And Red Rock.
Tell Ronnie and the boys we say hello. We're pulling for you.
All right, I will.
See you, Dan. All right, so Hamlin. So Hamlin puts a bow on Pocono, a place that, as I had said, is his bitch. I mean, that is his track. Hamlin is the guy at Pocono. His name will be painted on a rock out front. Before we go, I know we like to touch on paint schemes. Anything you saw this weekend, Spider, that grabbed your eye? I got a couple.
I got a couple as well, and I'm going to start with the 14 of Chase Briscoe in that highpoint.com car. I love this. High Point sponsored the great Pocono race we watched on Sunday, and they've been super loyal to our guy, Chase Briscoe. We actually met both Chase and the CEOs and founder of High Point at Daytona previously this year. And the story of how Chase came into the sponsorship is awesome in itself. I think Chase's dad met the High Point CEO in Las Vegas, and the story and the sponsorship came shortly thereafter with a partnership and everything. But point being, not the prettiest scheme, but I love the initiative from High Point. One, they sponsored the race. They had their name on the race. Two, like I said, they've been on Chase's cars a bunch. And that's exactly what we need. Stewart-Haas losing the Busch sponsorship, which is Kyle Busch's number 4, the Peach Orange 4, was also one of my favorite schemes of the week. But in a game rather, where Stewart-Haas is going to be needing sponsors to fill that void, I think you got to commend High Point for stepping up. Other than that, I really liked Ryan Blaney's auto parts car. And then And I want to give a shout out to Denny Hamlin's car as well, because that's a first time sponsor I've seen run, at least to my knowledge, in that teal 11. Again, not the prettiest scheme I saw on track this week, but a relatively small company, nailing it and picking a great spot for Denny. And they got the car in victory lane. So that deserves a little bit of love. Those were my favorites of the week. And I'm going to probably take the one I didn't love. And this is the opposite of what I usually pick. The 47 car of Ricky Stenhouse. It was not a food product I can consume, rather a dog food. Don't get me wrong, I love dogs, but I also love when Ricky Stenhouse wears and rides in cars that look like things that belong on my grocery list. So unfortunately, not Ricky this week, but I'm confident that Ricky will have a nice scheme in weeks coming. What did I miss, guys? Anything pop out to you on track this week?
Tyler Reddick's one.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
At the beginning, I was like, they usually kill it with the Jordan cars. I don't know if I really like this one, and the more I look at it, I like it a lot. I don't know.
Did you see the license plate on the back? I really like that touch.
What did it say?
The back bumper had a license plate like a normal car would. Really? So I thought that was a nice little touch. And I kind of, I'll take the under on this paint scheme only because usually Tyler Reddick shows the fuck up when Jordan is on the hood of his car.
Yeah.
And granted, he finished third, I think, but that was a late race charge, and it didn't really seem like he was a big-time threat early on in the race.
I also thought Ty Gibbs was a little funny. It was like he is us.
The God car.
It was basically a God car.
Yeah.
And then there's just a Monster Energy logo, which is like, if you've ever seen that video where it's like Monster Energy is like the devil's juice. Yep. I thought that was ironic. And then another ironic one was, I just think putting like Suarez in the massive American flag. It's like,
yes,
you run that on like Ross, I guess. I don't know.
Someone on Twitter pointed that out.
It's kind of up to him,
He's the only international driver in the circuit, aside from SVG, who races occasionally. But how are you going to put the American flag car on the international guy?
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I just don't know if that makes him feel weird or like, I don't know.
Yeah. The thing that I liked about Ricky's car was that the dog on the side of it, Ruby, is his dog. And it's kind of cool.
That is cool.
When you get to throw your own dog on it. Yeah, so that's Ruby Stenhouse.
All right. Maybe I retract.
Yeah, I'm going to tell him that you're shitting all over his dog. But I got close to the door on it, and sure enough, right off the top of her head, it says Ruby Stenhouse. But you couldn't see like from far away, so that's his dog. That's kind of cool. And the second one I like is I went to the drivers' meetings, and the drivers come in all in their fire suits, and all of a sudden Truex, who we were supposed to have on last week, and there was some miscommunication as far as time. Truex comes strolling in that Interstate Batteries, that lime green with the lightning bolts on it, and I like that. Yeah. I like the 19, obviously Bass Pro Shops, iconic. But every now and again, see Truex kind of stroll out like he's about to go to a fucking rave or something in that lime green and jump into the 19 Interstate Battery car.
I will say about that scheme, it always throws me off that they'll run that like every Joe Gibbs driver will run that exact same scheme, which always throws me off when like one driver's running a different person's scheme.
So. It's like a game of guess who.
But it is sick.
Yeah, it's cool one. And maybe I just like the cut of his jib, but he looked damn good in that fire suit. All right, so that's our paint schemes. So before we go any further, I just want to remind people this episode is also brought to you by FX's Justified City Primeval. It's based on the best-selling Elmore Leonard novel. Timothy Oliphant is back as Marshal Raylan Givens. His hair is grayer, his hat is dirtier. While balancing life as a U.S. Marshal and part-time father, a chance encounter sends him to Detroit, where he crosses paths with the Oklahoma Wild Man, a violent sociopath and his powerful defense attorney who finds herself caught between cop and criminal. You got to watch FX's Justified, City Primeval. All new episodes Tuesdays on FX and streaming on Hulu. All right, so we've done just about everything that we need to do with Pocono. Is there anything you want to wrap up with Pocono, Spider? Anything you saw that caught your eye?
I mean, maybe just a couple quick over-unders, but I pretty much touched on a lot of those.
Yeah.
Over on Joe Gibbs Racing, I mean, Denny finished 1, Truex 2, Ty Gibbs 5th, and Christopher Bell 6th. So all 4 cars in the top 6. Gotta love that for Joe Gibbs. I was especially impressed with Ty Gibbs. And then taking the under on Kyle Busch, a guy that we all said on this show that we thought was going to have a great week, and he had some pit trouble and really couldn't find his way to the front. as well as Chastain, a pick that I had. It seemed like he kind of punted on qualifying and wasn't ever really a factor here at Pocono, despite kind of showing his card last year and looking like a pretty good threat. So those are my over-unders this week, guys. Did I miss anything? I know we kind of spoke a little to those earlier.
I've got like, I don't know, I guess like a neutral of Kevin Harvick where he's like, I'm
Quigs.
I'm a hate like where
some
it's you could almost put him as like an over because he's been like he's just a top, like he's a fourth place driver in so many races this year where he's near the top but he never feels like a threat, like he is gonna win it. I don't know, I think he's just kind of gonna be that all season where he comes close a little bit but he's not gonna get one.
I'm done.
What do you think he's an over?
P4 two weeks in a row, I think gives you.
I know, but I think that's like his limit.
In a Stewart Haas. Oh, you think so? Yeah, you think so? Going into
I'll
Richmond?
take this personal.
I'm going to take it personal. It's going to show when we do the picks. I also just want to mention Eric Jones coming in top 10. Right? I mean, this guy. Legacy couldn't get anything right early in the season. I know Gragson has been in the wall more times than we care to comment on. By the way, I saw Noah Gragson down at the track again. Just fucking great guy. So terrible start for Eric Jones. He was P8 at Nashville, P11 back-to-back at Atlanta and New Hampshire, and another top 10 P9 at Pocono. So I think you gotta give him a little bit of shine. Right?
That's a bet you should look at every week.
Top 10 Eric Jones?
Because he's always somewhere between plus 400 and plus 600 for a top 10.
Right.
And he just always sneaks in there.
Yeah.
No matter what type of race he has. He's something about the last couple laps of the race. He just picks up some spots.
Yeah, so I'm happy for him. Toyotas, I think we're 6 of the top 7. So yeah, we give a shout out to them. Or 5 of the top 6, right? And then, the best Chevy was P7. Was Ricky Stenhouse, which I don't think anyone probably would have had best Chevy being Ricky Stenhouse. So shout out to Ricky too with another top 10. All right, so we put Pocono in the rearview mirror. We're going to go right to Richmond. Preview Richmond is brought to you by NASCAR. Another full weekend of racing. Xfinity is not racing in Richmond. It's going to be at Road America in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, Saturday 3:30 on NBC. So the Xfinity race Saturday 3:30 on NBC. Trucks are Richmond Saturday night at 7:30 on FS1. And the Cup race on Sunday is the Cookout 400. As we mentioned before, it starts at 3 p.m. on USA. Spider and I are doing a ride-along on Saturday in Richmond. We're going to get to the track somewhere around 1 o'clock for anybody who happens to be there. Spider and I will be in and around the track all day Saturday. And going into this race, you heard a little bit of a preview by Denny. There's only a couple of multiple win drivers who will be in the race this weekend, Denny being one of them and Harvick being another. They both have 3 wins there. And then Brad K and Martin both have 2. So they're the only multiple win guys who will be this week, and they happen to be the older guys, obviously, in the Cup Series. So with that, let's go to picking the tires. Let's see what everybody thinks they got this week. Who wants to go first?
All right, Quigs, let's hear you because you probably got winners. Let's lead with that.
Maybe. So I have 2 picks. I had 3 and I crossed one off. I'm going Denny to repeat this week, plus 700. I don't know. I think it just feels like he's had a lot of success at this track, and I feel like he's got a little chip on his shoulder. I think he could do it again. And then I have a plus 1,400, 1,700, plus 1,700, Chase Elliott. Yeah. Josh Berry in the race earlier this year finished second. So same car. Chase Elliott needs to win. His car can do it. He's been very quiet. I think he just comes out of nowhere this week. And the name I crossed off was Christopher Bell. Everything says that he's going to have a lot of success here, but I don't know. There's a lot of tracks lately that he's been kind of a favorite at and just hasn't really shown up. I just don't want to put him on my card. So
I think those are all great points, Quigs.
That's the name I crossed
thank
off.
you for reminding us of the Chase Elliott, Josh Berry fact, because that was impressive. And I think you're right. Chase obviously needs a win. This might be a good opportunity to get him done. I'm going to go a different direction. I'm actually with you in the sense that I think it will be the Toyotas. I'm not going to take Denny Hamlin, however, just because I don't know. Despite him kind of dodging my question about retaliation, I just think he's got his work cut out for him. And I think there's better Toyotas that have a chance to win. And that Toyota that I'm referring to is Martin Truex Jr., who is currently plus 460 large. I know you can't take him out of your best interest for the success in his personal career. So I will do us all a favor and take Martin Truex plus 460 on the Barstool Sportsbook. I know you kind of brought up another good point, Quiggs, with the Christopher Bell thing. All the tracks it looks like he's going to be a dominant factor at, he's kind of went the other way. And I don't know how to feel about him at this track. He has good history here.
I think his past 6 races he's had 5 top 5s, and the one he didn't, he finished 6th place. Like, he is great, but I don't something just, it doesn't feel like a Christopher Bell win.
Yeah. So, and Truex, I mean, he looked strong last week. I honestly thought he was going to win at Pocono. So I think he's been running really good. And if there's what Denny's saying about, contract negotiations that need to be ironed out in his camp, nothing more than a win helps settle that. So not the most glamorous odds at plus 460, but I'm going chalky this week. And I think that's going to be my only play. Just that way, if indeed I cash, I'm not deleting too many units, or I'm not sacrificing anything. So I like Truex, and I do like the Toyotas, and I'm also very intrigued by your Chase Elliott pick. But for the sake of my record and the race for second that is Large and I'm going with Martin Truex plus 460. Large, what do you got?
I think I'm going to I don't pick winners anymore, but I like Kevin Harvick this week, and top 3 is still plus 260. I like that. So Kevin Harvick, top 3.
I wish
he just has to outperform then.
I wish you could.
Top 4.
I wish we had a bet that was
head-to-head.
Kevin Harvick to finish exactly 4th place.
Yeah,
that'd be great odds.
A coward would then take him for a top 5. I'm taking him top 3 instead of top 5 because of you.
I respect.
So if he does go P4 or P5, know that I lost money because I don't you. Yeah, I think I also like Logano a little bit. I think I like an angry Logano who's now cursing into microphones, but I'm not going to take him. Instead, since I'm on the Harvick thing, I'll take Ford as the winning manufacturer, and I'll get plus 220, and I'll get all the Ford drivers, including my guy, Harvick and Logano, so I don't mind that. And I kind of saying bet angry, I like Kyle Larson this weekend, but I don't pick winners anymore, so I'll do it short odds at plus 135 for a top 3 finish. Kyle Larson, top 3. Kevin Harvick, top 3. Ford manufacturer winner at plus 220. Those are my 3. Lock them in. Best of luck to you, Spider. I wish nothing but bad luck on Quicks. I don't
know. You got me a little scared with the Denny. Short tracks aren't good when people are mad at you. But
I have one other question, and not to keep pointing back to the Denny interview, but he brought up a good point in which not a good point, an interesting point when he said that he would prefer his driver, Bubba Wallace, to get in the playoffs over his teammate, Ty Gibbs. Well, I'm looking on the Barstool Sportsbook here in driver matchups, and they got a head-to-head between Bubba Wallace and Ty Gibbs.
Actually?
Ty Gibbs is minus 130 and Bubba Wallace is even money. I'm just gonna be a witness. I'm not gonna add this to my card, but guys, which side are you on in reference to this bet?
It's tough. I love that is a bet.
That is a good bet.
Yeah.
I don't know. Ty's he's been very consistent. I would probably take Bubba just because I like odds and getting somebody even money over minus 130.
I'm probably with you. I'd give this slight edge to Bubba. Large, how about you?
I like Ty. I like the momentum that I'm seeing out of the kid and whatnot. So I would take the other side on that if we're going to screw around. All right, cool. That's it for this week. Unless anybody has anything else to say, follow us on social at Rubbin is Racing. And again, we'll see you guys down at Richmond if you're going to be there. And if not, we'll talk to you next week on Rubbin is Racing.
Peace.